So it's raining out, and the perfect time for some Coué in the car. Longtime followers of this channel will know that I've done a lot of videos about Émile Coué's teachings over the last couple of years in the car when it's raining. For whatever reason, it seems like it rains a lot when we talk about Coué. Uh, so, yeah, we had a group session, um, earlier this week, and I mentioned that I was going to read this excerpt about Coué's conscious auto-suggestion method from Simple Self-Healing, which is a book I edited of Coué's teachings back in 2017. I was talking to my friend Sam Cabert the other day, and he was asking me where a good place to start with Coué is if people are brand new to it. I'd say this book is a pretty good starting point because I tried to edit it in a way that makes it so it's very easy to understand, and it seems modern enough where some of the language, is not going to throw you off or what have you. But the part of the book I want to read today is actually an excerpt from Cyrus Harry Brooks's great book, The Practice of Autosuggestion. Brooks, saw Coué in action for a long time and really wrote wonderfully about Coué's method and his general approach, his theory in the practice of autosuggestion, and also in his later book, which he wrote with a Christian minister called Christianity and Autosuggestion, which we've spoken about before on this channel as well. And I'm going to put a link above, again, as I often like to do, to the Émile Coué playlist, which has so many videos about conscious autosuggestion, which these days most people call affirmations. And we've been speaking a lot recently about robotic affirmations. Almost all of the, modern affirmation recommendations we can trace back to Coué in terms of getting them to work more effectively in our lives. So I wanted to read this excerpt of Cyrus Harry Brooks just talking about how to implement Coué's conscious autosuggestion practice into your life, with the general disclaimer, which I always make, that you have to trust yourself and you have to be flexible. Like, you do not have to use the very popular general Coué phrase, every day in every way I'm getting better and better. You can formulate your own affirmation, right? Likewise, you can use affirmations throughout the day. And Coué often advocated doing this if you could isolate and be passive when you say it. And that's what we've been talking about a lot recently, and what Sammy Ingram talks about just saying something over and over and over again throughout the day to implant it gently, passively into your subconscious. So again, I'm reading this excerpt here more for the general application and theory that Brooks and Coué are getting at, not for like very specific instructions for how you do it. Because you're going to hear this, and the specific instructions are great, but what's greater is the underlying point. That's why I always talk about Coué, is the underlying deep theory and application he's talking about. If you start to integrate that more in your life, it will change your quote-unquote manifesting practice. It will change how you think about these law of attraction, law of assumption ideas. Frankly, I don't care if you use conscious autosuggestion or affirmations at all. A lot of people don't like using affirmations. That's fine. You still are going to get, I think, tremendous value from studying Coué, because he's explaining how our subconscious or our imagination works. For Coué, the subconscious and our imagination were synonymous terms on a practical level. So this is what Brooks wrote. And again, if you haven't read Simple Self-Healing, it's a very good place to start. I'll put the link in the description. Brooks says, we've seen that autosuggestion is a function of the mind, which we spontaneously perform every day of our lives. The more our induced autosuggestions approximate to this spontaneous prototype, the more potent they're likely to be. The fussy attempts of the intellect to dictate the method of processes which lie outside its sphere will only produce conflict and so condemn our attempt to failure. Simple directions are amply sufficient, if conscientiously applied, to secure the fullest benefits of which autosuggestion is capable. Before starting it as a daily practice, if you wish, you can take a piece of string and tie it in 20 knots. By this means, you can count with a minimum expenditure of attention as a devout Catholic counts their prayers on a rosary. The number 20 has no intrinsic virtue. It's merely adopted as a suitable round number. At night, upon getting into bed, close your eyes, relax your muscles, and take up a comfortable posture. These are no more than the normal actions prior to sleep. Then, repeat about 20 times, counting by means of the knots if you like, the general formula. Every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. The words should be uttered out loud. That is, loud enough to be audible to your ears. In this way, the idea is reinforced by the movements of lips and tongue and by the auditory impressions conveyed through the ear. Say it simply, without effort, like a child absently murmuring a nursery rhyme. In this way, you avoid an appeal to the critical faculties of the conscious mind, which would lessen the affect. When you've gotten used to this exercise, you can say it quite, quote-unquote, unconsciously. You can begin to let your voice... when you've gotten used to this exercise and can say it quite unconsciously, you can begin to let your voice rise or fall, it doesn't matter which, on in every way. This is perhaps the most important part of the phrase, and therefore can be given a gentle emphasis. But at first, don't attempt this accentuation. It will only needlessly complicate things by requiring more conscious attention and possible unwanted effort. Don't try to think of what you're saying. On the contrary, let the mind wander wherever it will. If it rests on the formula, all the better. If it strays elsewhere, don't worry. As long as your repetition doesn't come to a full stop, your mind wandering will be less disturbing than would be the effort to control it. The sovereign rule is to make no effort. And if this is observed, you'll intuitively fall into the right attitude. This process of subconscious adaptation may be hastened by a simple suggestion before beginning to repeat the formula. Say to yourself something like, I'll repeat the formula in such a way as to get its maximum effect. This will help bring about the required conditions more effectively than any intellectual exercise of thought leading up to induced autosuggestion. On waking in the morning, repeat the formula in exactly the same manner as when you go to bed at night. Its regular repetition is the foundation stone of the autosuggestion method and should never be neglected. In times of happiness and health, it may be regarded as an envoy going further to clear the path of whatever evils may lurk in the future. But we must look on it chiefly as an educator, as a means of leavening the mass of adverse spontaneous suggestions which clog our subconscious and rob our lives of their true significance. Every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. Say it with faith. When you have said it, your conscious part of the process is completed. Leave the subconscious to do its work undisturbed. Don't be anxious about it, continually scanning yourself for signs of improvement. The farmer doesn't turn over the clods every morning to see if his seed is sprouting. Once sown, it's left till the green blade appears. So it should be with suggestion. Sow the seed and know the subconscious powers of the mind will bring it to fruition. And all the sooner if your conscious ego is content to let it rest. Say it with faith. You can only rob induced autosuggestion of its power in one way, by believing that it's powerless. If you believe this, it becomes powerless for you. The greater your faith, the more radical and the more rapid will be your results. Though if you only have sufficient faith to repeat the phrase 20 times each night and morning, the results will soon give you the proof you desire, and facts and faith will go on mutually augmenting each other. So that's a wonderful excerpt from Cyrus Harry Brooks. Very profound. Certainly worth, in the very least, maybe listening to again what I just read, but I would say just, reading the book or listening to the audiobook version. Again, if you want to learn the specifics of the method, you can read some Coué, read some Cyrus Harry Brooks and get that. And we talk about the specifics a lot on the Coué playlist, which I created and has many videos, over 80 videos at this point, approaching 100, I think. We describe a lot of the process like Brooks just did there. But more importantly is what's underlying it, the ideas that Coué and people like Brooks are conveying. You have a ton of flexibility here. You don't have to follow this method to a T to get great results. You can formulate your own general affirmation or autosuggestion. It can be a specific autosuggestion or affirmation if you want. You do not have to move your lips and say it out loud if you don't want to. These are all helpful pointers that Coué and Brooks made, but I found through working with clients and talking to a lot of people about this and looking at other teachers that, you don't have, it's not about the specific method. The specific method works great for a lot of people. And Coué proved that with how effective it was for a lot of people. But making it your own is going to work the best for you. Whether it's this or something else. A different way of saying it, affirming throughout the day. This emphasis on passiveness and getting the conscious mind out of the way is what I really wanted to convey here with reading that excerpt. Don't let your conscious mind interfere. The reason people have issues with robotic affirmations in terms of getting anxious after they do them or while doing them, and some people end up, needing medication or even going to the hospital, as we discussed. I'll put a video above if you didn't see that when we were talking about that. The reason why is they get the conscious mind involved and they start looking for external signs of success from their affirming or conscious autosuggestion. That's what you don't want to do. You want it to be a passive process and keep the conscious mind out of it. Your conscious mind is very valuable. But when we're implanting an idea imaginatively into our subconscious, you don't want to be consciously analyzing it. I've been saying it to a lot of people recently, if you like robotic affirmations, if you're into a lot of these, hip ideas on YouTube and Instagram and elsewhere about affirming and robotic affirming, it's very, very worthwhile, in my opinion, to study Coué. Coué is the guy. For most people, to be blunt, Coué's the guy to study when it comes to manifesting more than anybody else. He just explains it more clearly, more soberly, and more effectively in many ways than anyone else I've encountered. So yeah, if you have any questions or are interested in coaching or want to talk to me, I can be reached at info@radicalcounselor.com. You can find out more information about my books at radicalcounselor.com. And until next time, happy affirming.